conclusion that now we have to enter into them into their little discussion to as they say, to compel them onto the truth.
Because it's quite ironic. I'm going to use that for Reverend Mo now. Ironic.
Ironic, yeah. Alex Valenkin, which I know is also an atheist, ironically. He said
ironic. I'm going to demand you say the word ironic.
Ironically. So he said, to paraphrase, reasonable arguments are used for reasonable people, but proofs are used for unreasonable people, right? So, and therefore, that's why we have to, in essence, sometimes use a bit more technical jargon. Sometimes, although I'm all for using more plain language, but properly defined, in order to in a way, compel unreasonable people, if they are being sincere, to the inevitable conclusion of a necessary being, or being that's independent of all things, upon which reality depends upon and initiates reality by choice, and hence has a will. So anyway, that was just my aside. Proving God's existence can be done to a child very easily, as I expressed. But that argument that convinces a child will not convince a entrenched and determined adult skeptic who's going to use who's going to use word games to obfuscate that truth. And so therefore we use more complex language against those word games.
Yeah, and it's funny as well because the simple position and the default position generally tend to be, historically, belief in a supernatural. You see that. Even Richard Dawkins has conceded that in a discussion with Joe Rogan, that there's never been an atheistic society that's been successful. Everywhere you look, there's been belief of some sort of supernatural, of a life after death, of a higher power. So the simpler view is theism. That is the default. It's the atheism that takes a lot of convoluted discussion to posit, to put forward. And so convoluted discussion being put forward, you need more complex, what's that saying? A sentence of stupidity requires a lot more effort to debunk than it did to put forward.
Yes, of course. Or a disproportionate amount of time to debunk than it was to say.
So there's that, and then to George, if you've only got 200 characters and you can't give a complete and self-consistent argument, which, by the way, you've already claimed before this sort of contradiction thing as well, that you can make an argument and make things seem true that are not true, then what's the point in giving an argument at all anyway, whether it's 200 characters or more? But if you want more space, send an email. If that's something you would rather do, feel free to email contact.ponderingthought@gmail.com. When I get a bit of time, I'll happily respond to it. But yeah, and Jazakallah khair to FI for the contribution to the super chat. May Allah bless you as well. So yeah, let's jump back straight onto the stream because we're never going to get anywhere.
So we say necessary being or contingent being, we're talking about something that has to exist. Yeah, it doesn't give a particular ontology about consciousness or not. That's a separate discussion. But when we talk about contingent being, we're talking about something that possibly exists, or it could exist in another way. Is that clear? Because it's quite important, because if you say, well, necessary being doesn't exist, then you need to be able to understand what necessary means and also what being means in that context, regardless of that. And also it goes back to the other discussion, which then becomes about evidence and...
He doesn't look like he's even paying attention at this point. He's like...
Proofs used to justify the existence for this necessary existence or necessary thing that must exist and cannot exist in any other way. Does that make sense? So the point that I was mentioning earlier is, if what we're saying, or what you're saying specifically, is that the only evidence that you see to justify your position is that which is demonstrable from an empirical point of view, then in essence you're saying anything that's outside of empiricism cannot be established or concluded, even to the least amount of doubt. We're not talking about being absolutist in our knowledge or being absolutely certain, but just simply saying that we have a set of data, we come to certain conclusions. Is that right then? So that basically evidence for you, fact, data that allows you to conclude is only that which is demonstrably on an empirical basis.
Well, I would put it another way. I mean, if you can't know something, then you can't know it. Yeah,
so the only way we can know something is through empiricism.
As I said before, if you can't verify the accuracy of your claims to any degree at all, by any means whatsoever, then there's no way to show what you know. There's no way to test your knowledge.
Okay, so let me just ask a question, because we were talking about the law of non-contradiction earlier, and you seem to say that you affirmed it in the sense that that's how you use it to operate and to live by. But on the other hand, it seemed like you also said that you couldn't demonstrate that the law of non-contradiction is actually a true principle. So I'm wondering what, sort of the connection between those two things are, because if it can't be demonstrated, why are you at the same time taking it or believing in it? I guess you would say that you believe in it, but you don't know that it's true.
I'm happy to assume that it's true. I can say that I know it's true to the degree that we can't show that it's false. I mean, there's no way. How do you falsify that? You would have to show something that is both itself and not.
So what about the discussion of God? How do you falsify that? How do you show that God does not exist? Necessarily.
More irony, I think, from Aaron Ra. He's contradicted himself yet again. In that it's asserting that God can't exist, or cannot exist, or doesn't exist, with some kind of surety, and then making an argument for that you can only let's say prove, or some kind of argument that proves existence requires some kind of negation, the demonstrable negation that it can't exist if you're saying that it can't exist. So that's basically more irony, I think, from Aaron Ra. I mean, hopefully the brothers will call him out on this anyway. They'll be calling him out shortly on this.
Yeah, I think there was an atheist who did do a video response to this. Maybe we can watch that again at some point. But although that was 2 hours long, so it'd probably be a 10-hour video if we respond to that one. Oh, maybe I can take some clips out of that or something, and we can respond to the clips maybe, inshallah. But yeah, he was called out by this on all of this by the atheist community.
Not itself.
Yeah.
So we're not going to have that.
Yes, but I mean, if
philosophical conversations are just completely lost on me. I'm waiting for the meat.
Okay, but
philosophical conversation, they just never show up.
Yeah. So, but the issue though is if you have falsifiability as a principle in order to, as you said, demonstrate something, or in order to have knowledge of it, then even by your own admission of what you just said, we could never really have knowledge of the law of non-contradiction and knowing that it's true, because it can't be falsified.
I said we can't verify it as a fact. We can assume it as a fact, but how would you test that? And I'm happy to assume that it is a fact.
So
then
then
you're looking for the relevance.
So then you think that we can assume that certain things are fact without having knowledge of them, and that's okay?
Don't we have knowledge of that?
Well, I thought you just said that we don't.
I said that when you define something as a fact because it's objectively verifiable, how do you objectively verify that something can be and both can't be what it is?
Right. So if the standard for
we don't use the
knowledge,
word fact, but we can still use the word knowledge because we have examples of things being what they are. We have no possibility of it not being what it is. So then we don't have that. Then we can establish. Okay, yeah, then that has to be true.
right? Well, that would be considered a necessary being or a necessary fact.
It wouldn't.
I say what? Because you just said it couldn't possibly be another way, which means that it's necessary.
I said there's no possibility of it,
Right. Which means that it's necessary.
which means that there's literally no possibility. Doesn't mean that it's necessary.
It's so cringe. I just want to play that again.
Possibly be another way.
It couldn't possibly be another way. It's
Which
necessary.
means that it's necessary.
I said there's no possibility of it,
There's no possibility of it.
Right. Which means that it's necessary.
which means that there's literally no possibility.
There's literally no possibility.
Doesn't mean that it's necessary.
It's necessarily the case that there is no possibility.
Ability that it couldn't be necessary. Yeah. I mean that's the thing. It's the definition of necessary. Something necessarily happening is that it couldn't be any other way.
Yeah.
That's as I said, it's more self-contradiction and irony, I believe, from from these statements. I mean, I'm actually glad that Oday actually pulled him up upon this. As I said, that's why I say that I think he.
last operator standing. Op 4 is defusing a bomb. You need to disable their diffuser. Op 4, last stop standing. Diffuser located. Protect the bomb. Disable the diffuser. Diffuser has been destroyed. Mission successful.
He represents the old wave of world, I suppose. Because I say this because I'm not sure that atheists can vary in different cultural contexts. Obviously, Chinese atheists might be very different from the atheists of America and the UK. But within the Anglo-Saxon sphere, he represents an older wave of the Richard Dawkins era, but he never made it onto the Four Horsemen. I think the four top, the so-called the top four was Daniel Dennett,
The big daddies.
Christopher Hitchens, Dawkins, and who was the fourth one again? I forget now. It wasn't. I
can't remember the names. Dawkins, Hitchens, Krauss, and Daniel Dennett. Krauss, yeah.
But yes, the Four Horsemen. Yeah, so he never really made it onto the Four Horsemen. He was kind of like, I suppose, it was kind of at the time when YouTube was brand new, 2006, I think. So that was 2007, which I was around then making YouTube videos, which kind of shows my age a little bit. It's actually shocking to realize that there are people alive today who are getting interested in this stuff, maybe 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, who were born at the time that YouTube started in 2006, basically, or were born or weren't born yet when at that time, and they're now coming into this discussion. So subhanallah.
There's videos on YouTube older than some of the people watching this nowadays. Remember that.
Yeah, subhanallah, 15 years old, or like, 14 years old Muslims or theists or even atheists even watching this, and they're like, they're still very young, but they're like, wow, that was actually either when I was born or just the year before I was born. So subhanallah, time goes fast.
It does, doesn't it? What did they say? Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. I feel like really old when I say this. Like, oh, it wasn't like this in my day.
Friendly, last operator standing.
Yeah, I used to have to knock on my friend's house to see if he was in, and then find out he wasn't in, and had to go look for him.
We used to make YouTube posts by writing letters and then carrying it by horse.
Times change, bro. I remember my first mobile phone was like a Motorola, and there was only like you could maybe fit 10 contacts in there or something. It was like the screen was like a post box. It was dead thin. And I don't think you could even text on them. Oh, it's fun.
Where that game was, that the Snake game, that little which was like
before then,
even
Snake.
Before then, yeah.
The old
Okay,
Motorola didn't even have games on it, bro. It did, like you could barely bloody talk on it. Absolutely shocking. But yeah, and I remember talking about imagine one day when you can watch things on your phone, and like we were talking about this on our way to school. It wasn't a thing yet. Coloured screen. Imagine like your TV at home, but on your phone. And then it happened. I was like, oh, I could have bloody patented that. Let's get onto this.
In order to say whether something is possible, you can't, in science, you can't say that something is. Like religion always asserts facts that aren't facts, and pretends to know things nobody can know. Right? That's just
Can't say something is. His T-shirt says there is no God.
every religion does that. But science can't do that because that is effectively lying. When you say something is a fact, it's not a fact. When you say you know.
So he's a liar by his own admission, right? So 1830 is the interesting bit because now he's going to make a distinction
5 seconds.
between, in order to make a true claim, to have you have to have evidence.
Located a bomb.
So that's what a true claim
Make your way
is.
to its location.
And then, in order to say something is possible, so he's talking about these as if they're two different things, but then he doesn't really give different justifications for either of them. So keep that in mind while we listen.
Things no one can even know. Those are both lies. But in order to say whether something is true, you have to have the evidence indicating that. You have to be able to immediately show that there is evidence indicating that.
So in order to show something is true, you need evidence. You have to have evidence to show something is true.
In order to say whether something is possible,
Now we're moving on from saying something is true to something is possible. What do we need?
you have to show a precedent or a parallel or verified phenomenon indicating that such possibility exists.
You need evidence. So in order to show something is true.
See you on the other side. Going live.
You need evidence. In order to show something is possible, you need evidence.
Evidence.
All right. So how do you distinguish between what is true and what is possible? Evidence. Like it's the same thing.
When you don't have that, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not possible. It just means there is no possibility.
So aren't you?
It doesn't mean that it's not possible.
Recover the diffuser.
It just means there is
Friendly,
no
last operator
possibility.
standing.
So he's making these sound like they're not the same thing. So I'm gonna put that. I'll pull that up so we can look at it. So not possible, according to him, is not equal to
Not the same as
no
Yeah.
possibility.
no possibility.
So these two statements here are not just different ways of saying the same thing.
But brother, he's being consistent because he said that he didn't say that it's not possible for there to be non-contradiction, and he's now showing us that he clearly believes contradiction is possible because he's contradicting himself by on what is not possible equal to no possibility. So this is the issue. It's almost like a strategy of or a tactic of obfuscation. You know. All this
Convoluted.
confusing.
It's so funny. It's so funny because this is what we get accused of when we go through these discussions.
Yeah.
And it's
It's so convoluted enough that he can contradict himself without realizing he contradicts himself. That's the best. You know what? We should make a T-shirt. Not possible does not equal no possibility.
It's funny that because I'm gonna be speaking
Aaron
to
Ra,
you.
that's it.
I'm getting it's quite ironic because I'm in the process of getting some merchandise sorted, and my friend he keeps telling me I need to think of some like quirky ideas for T-shirts. So I'll get this and maybe some like silhouette of Aaron or something. I don't know on a T-shirt, like his T-shirt, but yeah. So maybe if we try to be a bit, I don't know, maybe we try and fix it for him because he's not talking clearly here at all. Like he could word this, if he means something else, he could word it way better than that. Like maybe what he means, so when he's saying something is not possible, he's talking about impossible existence, an impossible being. You know, the modality of
10
impossibility.
seconds to go.
When he's saying no possibility, maybe what he's
5
talking about
seconds
here
before
isn't
insertion.
the modality of impossibility, but just that we haven't got evidence
diffuser is no longer
for
in
the
your possession.
possibility, although it is possible. So it is which, if that's what he meant to say.
located a bomb.
Just using the word no possibility, it doesn't really communicate that. But that's, if he's making it distinct from not possible, we need to add all those other words for this to make any sense.
Well, it's the problem is it's confusing. I suppose you could say epistemological possibility with ontological possibility. What I mean by that now is, and this is where the confusion in terms occurs. So if I say that, if someone tells me, Abdullah, there's this statue the size of the Burj Khalifa in Australia, okay? Now, before I Google it or search for it, it's possible, as far as I know, that someone might have done a statue as big as the Burj Khalifa in Australia. I just don't know about it. However, if it doesn't exist, and let's say it never will exist or never does exist, then you could say it's not possible because it never came into existence, will never exist. Let's just say someone said to me that there is ontological claim of something that is not possible. So ontologically, it's not possible for contradiction to be the case. But could something exist if someone tells me that something exists outside of my knowledge? Until I can verify that, it could be possible from the perspective of my knowledge. That's something else.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the issue. So there's so he's clearly not. If that's what he means, he's not being clear about it.
Yeah,
that's the issue.
It's really funny as well because this guy, I can't be bothered. This is going to be the last time I address you because it's just really stupid. So he's saying Aaron definitely is very clear. So your head's pickled, mate. No possibility is not equal with impossible. Yeah. So not possible. It's literally the root of the word. In is not, which is the same as saying no possible, not possible. How is it not synonymous? How is saying like the definition of impossible is that there is no possibility. That's what impossible means. There is no possibility. That is equal. It is synonymous. That's exactly what it means. And words again. Oh, subhanallah. Like I'm not gonna deal with this guy anymore. He's either a bit simple or he's a troll, and either one's a bit annoying. But yeah. So, was there anything else you wanted to address, or shall I bring up the video again?
No, I mean, it's not possible for me to want to hear Aaron Ross on his continue his lack of clarity with any enjoyment in me. So that's not. Yeah, anyway, so let's just. He just needs to be clearer, basically. He just needs to be clearer.
Yeah, definitely.
You're saying that the religion makes claims that you couldn't possibly verify and you don't have evidence for. first of all, I want to say you said you want to get to the meat of it, right? And this is the problem, that we are coming from different angles, and we have different epistemic commitments. And what we want to do is come to a certain common ground in order for the conversation to move forward. We need to agree what it means for evidence to be, and what it means for verification to be, and fact to be, and all of these things. Because a lot of times these discussions just go on for hours of people talking past each other, using these terms differently, or not even understanding what they are whatsoever. I mean, there's a lot of philosophical literature out there about this, and it's not like any of this is non-controversial. But you said that religion asserts things without evidence. So you asserted a while ago that it is not a possibility that a necessary being exists. I'm wondering what your evidence is for that. There is no possibility that a necessary being exists. That's a positive statement. I was wondering what your evidence is for that. So what's the objectively verifiable fact that points you to this proposition that a necessary being cannot exist?
Once again, I repeat, in order to say whether something is possible, you have to show that there is a precedent or parallel or verified phenomenon indicating that such possibility exists. No one has ever presented one. You're welcome to prove me wrong by presenting that possibility. But if you don't present that possibility, then you're going to have to concede there is no possibility to present.
But right, the problem right now, Aaron, is that you're making a positive ontological claim about reality by saying that in order to say that something is possible, we have to show that it's possible through objectively verifiable facts.
I said there's no possibility.
Yeah, but the problem is you yourself right now are making a claim about reality, and you're not holding yourself by the same standard.
Yeah, because the thing is here is it's not. It's fair enough if something is said to be possible, you need to give forward argument of some sort.
A bomb must be located and defused.
Scanning. Bomb
You
spotted.
located a bomb.
Scanning.
Brace for it!
Bomb
Truck
detected.
ready! Adrenaline surge incoming. Throwing frag grenade.
Surge!
Here we go. Augment positioned. I'm out. Gotta reload.
Must recover the diffuser. Down to one friendly.
To suggest that that is a genuine possibility. But this also does apply for making the claim that something is impossible. In order to say something is impossible, you need to, let's use his way of saying it. What was his definition? So, objectively verifiable data, positively indicative. Proof is on the one who makes a particular claim. So if we're saying there is a God, explain what premises you think don't really cut the mark, and we can have justified hard atheism or atheism proper. You have not justified the positive claim that his t-shirt makes. Take note there, 2109. And this requires his evidence based on his own definition. He needs to provide objectively verifiable
Use your
facts,
drone to locate a bomb.
positively indicative of and or exclusively concordant with one available position or hypothesis over any other. And he's not. He just keeps saying, you need to give me something, blah, 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 blah. It's like, all right, fair enough. But then with all you're saying is that you're agnostic. If that's what if you're not happy with the arguments being put forward, you only justify agnosticism. You don't justify what your t-shirt says.
Yeah, and can he say it's possible that God doesn't exist as well by his own definition? But also the other explanations of the universe, like they might say that if God doesn't exist,
Drone has located a
what is
bomb.
the explanation for the universe? He might say it's eternal, so it wasn't created, or it came from nothing, or it's self-created, it made itself. None of these three possibilities behind this universe can be seen.
Swapping mags!
You have dropped.
Scanning for electronic devices. Drone activated.
Drone active. Let's find those sheep. I'm getting started.
Op 4 last stop standing. The diffuser has been recovered. Op 4 eliminated.
Within the universe. You can compare to within reality. So we're already in an area where there's no precedent within the thing itself, and that's the issue. So he can't. So then he must then be able to equally say that the universe can't be eternal. It's not possible the universe is eternal. It's not possible it came from nothing by nothing, all self-created as well, and therefore you just have no explanation for reality at itself at all whatsoever, and so on. But if he's going to be consistent with his own methodology, so we're discussing something there is no parallel to.
5 seconds to insertion.
Station in position.
You must protect your bombs from being defused by Op 4.
Station deployed. Sirius online. Station is deployed. Reloading.
One deeping 5.
Nitro deployed. Detonating.
Be advised, Op 4 has located a bomb.
Deployed.
Op 4 found a bomb. You must defend it.
Changing mags!
15 seconds left. Time expires in 10 seconds. 5 seconds remaining. Op 4, last stop standing. You're out of time.
which is the ultimate cause of observable reality, all of observable reality. There's no other parallel total of reality we can compare it to discuss precedents with. You know, that's the ridiculousness of his argument. So for him to be an atheist, he has to produce or at least
Protect the
posit
bombs.
that another explanation other than God is possible, and if you want to be an atheist about it, more explainable, more viable than God as a hypothesis. If you're just going to treat it as a hypothesis,
Yeah.
right? But he can't, because any other explanation
Reinforced
cannot be possible according to the criteria he's just mentioned.
Yeah. Exactly. Bring that up.
I'm definitely
giving
holding
us-
myself by the same standard. I'm saying that leaders have not presented any possibility. You are welcome to do so. But until someone does, my statement remains true. No one has ever produced a possibility that God exists.
So if no one ever, let's for the sake of argument for a second, because I disagree obviously,
5 seconds.
but
Okay.
if no one ever
You
produces a
have to-
possibility, if no one ever producing a possibility that God exists entails that it is not possible that God exists, if that's your view,
That would
do
not
you
have been.
have-
In fact, I corrected earlier. I said exactly the opposite. I said that just because you don't have a possibility doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means there's literally no possibility. You just
Keep an eye on what's at the bottom of the screen, brothers and sisters. What does that say? It's not just that they don't exist, it's that they can't exist. So he's now saying,
discuss.
God exists. If that's your view. If that's your view,
That would
do
not
you
have been.
have?
In fact, I corrected earlier. I said exactly the opposite.
did he say the opposite?
I said that just because you don't have a possibility doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means there's literally no possibility to discuss.
Literally, even prefaces it with the word literally. Like, you know, he's adding words to the no possibility, which make it sound like he's basically saying impossible. If you're saying literally no possibility,
Inside. Inside B, so let's...
Last operator standing. Op 4, last operator standing.
Near ping 5, near door. Door. Near ping 5, I mean.
Op 4 eliminated. Mission successful.
You literally mean no possibility. That is, there is no possibility. There is, like, how is that anything other than, like, fair enough, if he didn't put the, you know, the word literally in there, maybe we could say he doesn't really mean no possibility, that is impossible. But he's saying literally.
I think what he's trying to in this case, you see a dead body with the head. The head is like caved in, is blunt, is by some blunt object, and is bleeding on the floor. So the detective has a number of possibilities, right? And let's say, you know, there's a number of possibilities. The detective could say maybe he fell down, hit his head. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that someone had a hammer and bashed that person up the head with a hammer, and then fled the scene. Those are, let's say, two possibilities that could have happened. Now, further evidence will help you try to narrow it down which one was more likely, not with certainty, but will help you narrow down which one was more likely. So then why do we say something is possible in the first place? Even though only one thing killed that man, one thing, not two. It wasn't, he didn't both fall down, bang his head, and died because of it at the same time as someone coming in, and while he was standing up, bashed him through the head, killing him with the blunt force of that hammer, and made him fall down. There's no, unless you could also say that someone bashed him, causing him to fall down, and he hit his head again, killing him. But either he died from the blow to the hammer itself, or he died due to a subsequent, or alternatively, just exclusively by falling down and bashing him and injuring his head. Anyway, those are the possibilities. What actually happened was only one of those things happened. Only one of those things actually happened, and nothing else other than one of those things happened.
Ready to engage.
So you'd say it is possible to discuss that he was murdered or it was an accident. Those are both two possibilities you can discuss, right? As to what happened, one of those things happened. Okay, so now that we're talking about the universe, what caused the universe to come about? Well, the universe is an evidence, indeed an evidence, of the possibility that God exists and created the universe. It's the universe is an evidence of God's of the possibility of God's existence that we can discuss. So he's factually false. It's factually false a statement to make because the universe itself isn't evidence. The question is evidence of what, right? So evidence of eternality. So the universe itself is necessary or independent. Yeah, or evidence.
Second floor. Eyes on the target.
Reloading! Op 4, last stop standing. Friendly's victorious. Hostiles eliminated.
That something can come from pure nothing by nothing, or evidence of self-creation, right? Or evidence of a creator that creates the universe. It's an evidence of one of those things. Each thing is before we've done any further filtering via rational discussion, these are initial starting positions, which are initial epistemological possibilities. They are possibilities that we start off by looking at this and discounting through further investigation. So you can start knocking off eternality is impossible because infinite regress fallacy is a contradiction. Creation from nothing by nothing is a self-contradiction. Self-creation is impossible due to, again, contradiction. So the only possibility left is creation by something else, and ultimately creation by something else that is itself uncreated. Otherwise, you have a infinite regress of created things, each creating the next thing on a chain, going on forever, meaning that we never arrive at this point, because you have to wait for an infinite regress to be exhausted, and you can't exhaust infinity. Right? So to get to this point, you need an infinite regress. To not be the case, it has to be a finite regress of some kind of a chain of causality, starting with an initial cause, which itself is uncaused. And if it's uncaused and it causes things to happen by choice, there's only explanation that can explain it, because it's the first cause, that's the creator, and then it has will. There's our argument for God. There you go. That's literally how we conclude God's existence, by negating the other possibilities due to self-contradiction. But anyway, to rewind it, when we start with our initial 4 possibilities, the universe is eternal. The universe was created from nothing by nothing. The universe is self-created or created by something else. These are 4 possibilities that we can discuss epistemologically. And so he's still wrong in his argument, in his claim that God is not a possibility born by evidence to discuss, because it clearly is. The universe is the evidence.
Enemy contact. 5th floor.
Op 4, last stop standing. Friendly's victorious. Hostiles eliminated.
Now we
It's annoying.
Consistently, to it, he'd be the worst ever detective in the world.
Columbo, Columbo Ra would just be like, "Yeah, no, we found the body. It's nothing we can do."
Well, he'd
end episode.
He'd be Inspector Clouseau, if you know that from the Pink Panther or whatever.
Oh,
like he's inept at doing any conclusions. It's his colleagues that kind of solve the case for him, basically.
And he takes all the credit.
And he takes all the credit, yeah. So that's not a possibility we can discuss. It's just ridiculous. It is clearly a possibility we can discuss, but the question is it an atheist would another atheist might argue, a more astute atheist might argue, would be, is it a possibility that we can discuss that is more likely?
Drone activated.
Starting shock drone.
must recover the diffuser. The diffuser has been recovered.
Starting shutdown!
Setting charge. Reach charge up. Reach charge ready.
You have dropped the diffuser. Friendly, last operator standing. Op 4 eliminated all friendlies.
Then other possibilities that we can discuss. Right? That's maybe what another atheist that's more astute might say. For him to say what he's saying is just incorrect. Clearly, it's a possibility we can discuss.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, okay. So you're not a hard atheist in the sense that you say a necessary being does not exist. You're just saying
I'm a hard atheist.
You're
I'm a
more of
hard
an agnostic.
atheist. No, I'm a hard atheist in the sense that I know that God does not exist in the same way, for the same reasons, and to the same degree that I know that leprechauns don't exist.
But yeah, what's your basis for that? So, for example, when we talk about leprechauns, so philosophers talk about there's a famous saying, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, and that of course needs to be qualified. So philosophers normally say they speak about this, and they say that evidence of absence is absence of evidence is evidence of absence in a situation where the being that you're positing would actually leave. You would actually expect for it to leave evidence that you did not find when you're investigating it. So if you posit that a leprechaun exists, or if you say that like Bigfoot exists or whatever, we should expect a certain type of evidence that we can verify, through which we can verify the existence of such a being. But right now you're saying, I don't believe that leprechauns exist because I expect a certain set of data or evidence. If it were to exist, I would expect that kind of evidence that would verify its existence. Now, in the case of the existence of God, what is that evidence that you haven't found that makes you come to the same conclusion that we do about leprechauns?
Because there's a different
10
topic.
seconds.
First of all, you would expect to find evidence of Bigfoot, and we would have found it by now if there was such a
5
thing.
seconds to go.
And leprechauns, on the other hand, are entirely supernatural. Like God, they are entirely supernatural. They leave no trace of themselves.
Incoming adrenaline. Boosting adrenaline. Flashbang going out.
Time for a wake-up call.
Activating adrenaline surge.
You must recover the diffuser.
Initiating hack.
The diffuser has been secured.
In and you're welcome.
No longer in your possession.
Tossing flashbang.
All friendlies have been eliminated.
Even when they supposedly do something. So people will attribute everything that happens to God, even when there's a natural explanation for it. They don't care. They know that there's a natural explanation, and they'll just pretend that God orchestrated that natural explanation. So natural explanations still become explanations of God, and then they'll pretend things.
Yeah, but that's sorry, Aaron. That's precisely the point. So Bigfoot, there would be evidence. We don't have the evidence. Bigfoot doesn't exist. Leprechauns wouldn't leave evidence behind. Therefore, what a lot of people say is that in this case, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, because there is no predicted set of there's not a predicted set of data that you would expect as evidence were a leprechaun to exist. So right now I'm saying, what is this evidence that you would expect to exist if God existed, and basically that we don't have access to, so that justifies you in concluding that God does not exist?
Again, referring to leprechauns, you're looking for a way to disprove
Use your
leprechauns,
drone to
and
locate a
the
bomb.
point that you're missing is that there's no reason to believe leprechauns.
That's two separate issues, though. There's two separate issues, Aaron. One
You need to have a reason
do
to believe something.
yeah, that's right. You need to have a reason to believe something. That's one thing. The second thing is having an understanding that something is impossible. Those are two separate issues.
Okay.
Now, what Abdul is explaining, he's saying that, look, if you just have an absence of evidence of X, it doesn't mean that X doesn't exist. So if I turn around and I say X does not exist, it means that I'm making a positive claim. Now, what Abdul said, he said that to make that positive
Your
claim...
drone
So
has
they
found a
just
bomb.
basically beat this same point down for a little bit. He struggles to get it. So I'll just skip a little bit ahead.
Or we literally have nothing.
10 seconds to go.
Yeah, so there's, again, like I said, there's two issues. One issue is to say, make a positive claim that
5
God does not
seconds to
exist. That's one
insertion.
issue, which means that we're saying it's logically impossible for God to exist.
You've located a bomb. Make your way to its location and defuse it.
Reloading!
Reloading!
Changing mags! Incoming adrenaline boost.
User is no longer in your possession. You have located a bomb. Four last operator standing. The diffuser has... One friendly operator remaining. Op 4 eliminated all friendlies.